Okay. So that's how you can control Zoom. This is the taskbar. Please do not record. If I'm comfortable with my presentation, I'm going to, share it with you. And please mute your microphone. Unmute only when you have a question. I still hear people that have not muted their microphones. So check your microphone one more time and mute it. Yeah? Great. Okay. And if you can leave your video on, if you're not comfortable, no worries. You can use the participant section here. Click on this, and you can use these, icons to show me, any kind of feedback. Though I'm not sure if we can, I can get it at this stage. It would be very difficult for me to see them. So it's better to just, unmute and ask your question, or if you want a break. Good. So how can you ask questions? You can ask questions by going to this address. You can see them all the time here. If you're not comfortable asking your question in person, you can go there and type your question. The other students can vote for them. So if I see that, a question is asked several times, then, I can, let me see what happened. Then, I can answer that question. Okay. So let's go to another slide. You can see here that, what you can do if you lost me. This is a link here. Twitter.com, Amin Kamiri. If something happens, if an interruption occurs, I'm going to let you know what you can do. You can comment under this tweet of mine, just in case. Okay. Okay, let's go to the learning goals. I guess we can start now. After this class, you need to be able to distinguish between positivist theory and interpretive theories. You can decide if case study is, the right approach for your study, and you can choose between various types of, case studies: exploratory, explanatory, or hybrid. And you can also you need to be able to describe the products that should be developed in a case. Okay, first, a quick introduction to me. I joined Tilburg University in 2018. I got my PhD from UBC. That's, the email that you can use to contact me. I teach Python, enterprise architecture, and IS strategy. Okay. The research methods that I use usually is grounded theory, case study, lab experiment, and field survey. For this, you need to do content analysis. For this, you can use regression, ANOVA, or SEM. The data collection technique for this is interview or archival qualitative data. And for this is, a question. These are the research areas of my interest: data quality, big data analytics, and IT strategy. And these are the students that I have supervised. As you can see, some of them won the best thesis award. Okay, I just want to check something. Can you all clap for me because of having two? I'm just checking if I can get feedback from you. Just clap for me, okay? Good. Thanks a lot. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, I see that, you see things. Okay, that's a good control. Good. So now let's start with a positivist theory. What is a positivist theory? First of all, why we want to learn positive case study? First of all, because the majority of our IM students, they use this methodology in their thesis. Why positivist? When you do literature review, you see that most of the papers use this, positivist paradigm in their study. So this is why you need to learn this. What is the outcome of a positivist study? So it's usually a theory, a validated theory. And that means your thesis should end up with a validated theory. A theory is a relationships among several constructs. Our enemies are interpretivists. I'm just kidding, okay? But our enemies, the enemies of positivists are interpretivists. There's a clash between the two. They believe that constructs and relationships can be anything that you can interpret. But positivism believes that we only should suggest falsifiable relationships that can be rejected by empirical data, by observation, by experience, and things like that. So any relationship that, any kind of theory that we have, we should find a way, we should be able to reject it using the empirical data. Okay. We have 4 types of positivist outcome. Variant theories, as you can see here, causal or correlational relationships. It includes constructs and a causal or correlational relationship between these constructs. Another type is process theory. It's about existing processes in the world. They would say that first event 1 happens in a context, then event 2, then event 3. We also have taxonomy theories that would give you typologies of things, categorization of things. We also have system theory. I'm not going to discuss system theory here because it would be very difficult for you to to create that in your thesis. But the majority of this, the focus of this presentation will be variance theories. This is going to be the outcome that usually we expect from students in the thesis. But there are few students that would work for this, that would go for this. I mean, students who wants to create positivist cases, who want to use positive case study. The majority of them will create this one. Some would create this one. This one I haven't seen at all. What is a variance theory? So you see here, we have constructs in a variance theories. These constructs must be measurable. That means you can assign a value to that, a high or low value, a 0 or 1 value, or any numeric value. For example, IT management is not a construct here, but IT management quality, IT management effectiveness, I can assign high or low value to that. So therefore, this is a construct. So these constructs, they must all be measurable. We call this one dependent variable, and these are called independent variables or antecedents of the dependent variable. These relationship between the dependent variables, the DVs and IVs, these are causal or correlational. In a way, you're saying that if we increase X1, Y will be increased. If we increase X2, Y will be increased. Y will be decreased. So there's a kind of negative correlation or positive correlation between the constructs. So this is called the variance theory because we talk about the relationship between the variance of constructs. You need to create, again, I told you that variance theories are what you usually create as part of your thesis. So here, you need to deliver 3 products in your thesis as the outcome of your thesis. First, you need to have a list of constructs, the model, a nomological model that shows these relationships. Then you need to provide a list of constructs. So each construct that you see here, you need to put them here. Explain what the class of things with that constructs. I'm going to explain what that is. Provide a definition, a way to measure that, and some supporting literature or interviews for that construct. So you try not to develop a construct yourself. You usually try to use the construct that you have found in the theory. Then you also need to create a list of relationships, a table of relationships. You see that there is an A and B here, then there is an arrow here. For each arrow, you must have, a row here. And you would say that this is the influence of A and B is positive here. You try to use literature to provide support for this relationship. You try to say that there is an F, that when we increase A, F will be increased, and as a result, B will be increased. You're not going to provide measurement for F in this table. You just need to suggest 1 or 2 reasons, 1 or 2 F or construct like that. And then you need to provide quotes from interviews or evidence from data to support or reject this relationship. Okay. A variant theory is usually requires a unit of analysis, which you see here in the class part. All constructs are often related to 1 unit of analysis. That means, a construct is usually a property of a thing in this world. For example, IT management effectiveness is a construct which is a property of IT management. Or firm performance is a construct or student performance is a construct of, a thing in this world which is student. Here you would see that we usually have organizations or individuals here in this column, in this unit of analysis. So, for example, some examples of these classes or unit of analysis are Heineken. If organization is your unit of analysis, is the construct, then you need to see Heineken, Shell, ING here. If these are divisions, you need to see these divisions here. Projects, then everything must be about projects. Sorry, you shouldn't see Heineken, Shell, ING here. You should see organization here. You should see divisions here. You should see projects here. You should see groups, or you should see individuals. That means you want to create a theory about an individual. You want to create a theory about an organization. You want to create a theory about a division. You want to create a theory about a project or a group. So usually this must be one thing, one of these items that I mentioned. And these are just examples for this items that you see here. Okay. Let me go deeper into this construct. What is not a construct? So whenever you try to name a construct, you need to make sure that you can assign a value of high or low, yes or no, strong or weak, or a number. IT infrastructure is not a construct because I cannot assign a high or low value. Building IT infrastructure is not a construct. Actions are not constructs. Things are not constructs. But IT infrastructure investment and IT infrastructure investment value, these are constructs because you can assign a value to them. Sorry. A construct definition is better to start with the degree to which or the extent to which. For example, if the construct name is IT infrastructure scalability, we would say the degree to which the IT infrastructure of an organization can be changed easily. Maintenance cost, the degree to which the IT infrastructure of an organization requires funds to keep working. So it's a good habit to always start the definition of the construct with the degree to which, so that you can make sure it's measurable. Let me show you an example of this variance theory. We would say that if IT unavailability occurs, business disruption occurs, and a strategic risk occurs. Can I assign a high or low value to IT unavailability? Yeah. Perhaps all users in the organization cannot use the system, or all users of the organization can use the system, or partly they can use, partly they cannot use. So that's because of that, I can assign a high or low value. You see, each construct belongs to the class of things in this world. Unavailability belongs to the IT resource. It's a property of IT resource. Business disruption is a property of organization. And these are measurable. How? I can measure it using the duration of business disruption. I can have the geographical span of disruption. A strategic risk can be measured using financial loss. Unavailability can be measured using frequency or duration of unavailability. Okay. So this is one outcome. First, you need to create this at the end of your thesis. Then you need to provide these two tables. IT unavailability is the name of the constructs. It belongs to the organization's IT resource organization. This is the definition. That's how you can measure this. These are supporting data and literature. And this boundary part is not important. And further, do you have a question? Okay. So for this proposition, you see I have IT unavailability and business disruption. There's a relationship here. The sign is positive. And you have some supporting data or literature. You have found that in British Airways, this happened. So you need to develop these three products at the end of your thesis. This one, this table, and this table. So there's now one exercise. I would like you to think about this. I want you to know, this is a theory that is created by Levino and Rost in 2003. Figure out what's wrong with this research model based on what I just explained. I'll go grab a glass of water and be back. Let me see if you have any questions. So who wants to give me the answer? Just unmute and give me the answer.
Maybe there's not a specific why. So you have some axis, but the why is a bit vague.
Yeah, that's good. But you know, usually if you want to see whys are in the text of the thesis or the text of the papers. So you cannot see why here, but that's a good observation. But there's something else wrong with this model. And this was published in a top journal, you know, in 2003. Anyone else?
Many of the factors are basically looped. So any of them could influence one another, but there's no clear distinction between them.
No. You know, this can be called the system theories. Whenever you see loops, there is no problem, but then you're going to call it a system theory. But again, that's a good observation. Great. I'm glad to see smart students here. Okay, good. What else? Nothing? Okay. Let me give you some hints, and then perhaps you can help. Do you see unmeasurable constructs here? Who wants to give me an example of unmeasurable construct? Anyone? You see here, for example, we have IT personnel carrier development. Can you assign a high or low value to this? Or client relationship management. Can you assign a high or low value to this? You cannot. So there is no problem with having this theory. The problem is that they mentioned that, you know, they are using a positivist approach in the theory. If they would say that, oh, I'm an interpretivist, no problem. Okay, you have found these relationship and these constructs, and the relationship and constructs could be anything. How about relationships here? What's wrong with the relationships? They are not causal or correlational. You have defined here. Improves can be seen as a kind of causal or correlational. Leads to increase, this is sort of correlational or causal. But defined, help build, enables, this is difficult to be mapped to causal or correlational. Why do we want causal or correlational relationship? Because we can reject them using data. This is what positivism means. Okay, this is a theory that is created by one of our students a few terms ago. What's wrong with this? Okay, Nick, can you tell me what's wrong with this theory? Nick Manosh? Yeah? Someone else?
Maybe that the proposition 3 is that it's dependent of the other propositions.
What's that?
Like proposition 1 and 2 go to digital ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And then you have proposition 3 for another thing. Is that right?
No, that's not a problem. You can have layers of, constructs connected to each other. So that's not a problem. So there are two problems here. Measurable constructs. Which constructs are not measurable here?
I think structure and standards. It's a bit kind of a vague term.
Exactly. These are not measurable. Processes is not, in fact, digital ecosystem is not measurable. Can you measure that? No. How about this? 5G technology. Can you measure this? You cannot. So that's the real reason. Okay, how can you change this? This is a better question. How can you change? Look at the relationship that these students tried to create and you suggest one relationship, two constructs and a relationship between them.
If you put the word performance after the construct, then it's more feasible.
You say 5G technology performance. That's what you mean. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
But technology is just one thing in this world, 5G technology. Do we have several instances of 5G technology in this world? We don't have, huh? You can use, rather than using 5G, you can say communication technology. And then you have 5G, 4G, 3G, 2G as instances. Communication technology performance, as you mentioned, and its effect on what? What's the dependent variable? Just suggest one. Nothing? Here you can say process performance or structural changes. Is it high or low? So the problem here is that, first of all, these constructs needs to be measurable. Like performance, this performance is great. We can measure that. Security performance, safety performance. But about these technologies, you see speed here, cost here, latency here, you can measure these. You have to remove faster, lower, lower, and higher here. And then and remove 5G here, and make this about technology speed, technology cost, technology latency, and technology reliability. So these are constructs now. And then you would see the effect of that on process performance, standard changes, structural changes, things like that. Is that clear? Let me see if you have any questions. Any questions that you might have? Okay, good. What is a process theory? That was the second type of positivist theories. Here you try to identify an existing, what? An existing process, not known in the literature. Not how should a process be done. We don't care about that here. This is for consultants, or this is for design science theories to figure out how things should be done. As scientists, we only care about facts, anything that is already seen somewhere in the world. So about existing processes, you find case one, you create, develop the process, you extract the process there, you do the same for case two and case three, then you generalize them to process theory. You would say that, for example, in the case of IT unavailability, first IT unavailability happens, then business disruption happens, then financial loss happens. So this is called an existing process. And this is an example that you can see here. For example, in the case of Comer, their crew scheduling system went down. As a result, pilots had no schedules, then flight delayed and canceled. In the American Airlines, there was an outage, a problem with the iPad app that pilots would use. Then pilots could not see the flight delay. In the case of United Airlines, there was a reservation system, it went down. As a result, the staff, the check-in clerks could not issue boarding passes, flights grounded. You generalize all these patterns of events that you have found to IT unavailability, will lead to, after IT unavailability, information incapability happens. As a result of this, after a while, business disruption happens, and so on and so forth. So this is called a process theory. This is different from variance theories because you see here a lag between the events. In variance theories, you don't care about lags. In process theory, you care about lags. You want to create a process of events. How about taxonomy theories? Here you try to create categories. But you can only do that when there is a new phenomenon. And then you try to know that phenomenon better. Example of new phenomenon in, for example, in 2010 or 8 was, blockchains. Or in 2001 was social, media like Facebook, social media platform like Facebook, and so on and so forth. On those, dates, you could have created a, you could have used your thesis about categorization of those new phenomena. And this is an example, for a distributed ledger technology, a kind of blockchain technology. You see here that you try to find various instances of this DLT. You try to find the attributes of that. You find the values that can be given to those attributes. And then you try to categorize them based on these values that you have for each DLT case. You would say that, okay, at the end of the day, we have public DLT, consortium DLT, and private DLT. Again, our focus is on variance theory. This is rare. You don't even see them in top journals. You see some process theories in the top journals, but variance theories are, you have many examples of them in. Okay, the second question. When to use a case study and which approach to case study? We have different methodologies to validate a theory. You have come up with a theory, now you try to validate that. You can use case study, field survey, or experiment. So to figure out if you need to use a case study or not, first you need to conduct a literature review. Why? Let me explain this to you. You go to a company, you have found an internship, the company wants you to increase or decrease Y. That's their goal. In your proposal, chapter 1, you claim, or chapter 1 of your thesis, you claim that Y is important because of this and that. And then you claim that there is no study in the literature that addresses the antecedents of this Y. Okay, so this is a kind of claim. So you do this. I'm not saying that you're right. Then in your next chapter, you need to do a literature review about the antecedents of Y. Let's see what happens here. The result of literature review. You may find several antecedents as a result of the literature review. But each of these exists in 1 or 2 papers. Or you may not find them at all, but you have a good guess based on some other literature that are close to our literature. So some antecedents in other literature, not IS literature, but you can find some of those antecedents X1 and X2 that will influence Y. In this case, in a way, your theory can be completely built using the literature. Then you need to go for either explanatory case study, field survey, or experiment. We don't know which one now. But if, as a result of your thorough literature review, you have not been able to find any antecedents, or you have found 1 or 2, but you're sure that there are many of them, then you need to go for exploratory case study. So But how about these three? Let me give you an example. First, I'm going to explain how exploratory case study does that. For example, one of my students in the previous term, she wanted to figure out the antecedents of AI maturity. And she has found that, not that it doesn't exist, but there were so many things, and she just wanted to find new antecedents. So sometimes you just want to have fresh look at the antecedents of something. But sometimes you would say that, but her reasoning was that, okay, AI maturity we don't have it as a construct in the literature, but we have other business intelligence maturity, some other things. I don't believe they would be useful here. And because of that, I don't know the antecedents of AI maturity. So that was her reason. So he went and studied in case 1. He has found X1, X2, and X3 as the antecedents of AI maturity. That means if you increase these, AI maturity will be increased. In case 2, she found X1, X3, and X4. And in case 3, she found X2, X3, and X4. Then in her data analysis chapter, she generalized all of these cases she generalized all these different cases into this model, X1, X2, X3, and X4 with AI maturity. So this is theory development activity. And you call this exploratory CS. Again, when literature does not provide these, you go for exploratory case study. I won't suggest this to you because mostly you're wrong. There are some antecedents here and there. You just need to go and read those neighbor literatures. It is very rare that you cannot find the antecedents. Perhaps the phenomenon is very new. In those cases, perhaps there is a 10% chance that you need to go for exploratory case study. But most of the time, you are able to find the antecedents in the literature. Also, exploratory case study can be used when the A and B exist. You want to figure out how A influences B. So the literature has A influences B. You want to figure out what constructs exist in between A and B. There can be several other constructs here. These are exploratory case studies. Again, exploratory case studies are rare. What you really need to know is explanatory case studies. This is what most of our students use. So here again, a case 1 and case 2, and they are generalized to this relationship. So most of the time, you want to test a theory that is built using the literature. So you have this theory now. You want to check whether you should go for explanatory case study or field survey. Okay. You create a theory using the literature. You take that to your company supervisor. The company supervisor tells you this. There are several missing antecedents here. I know cases that, for example, Y is influenced by this, and you don't see them here. Or he would say that, oh, this is not correct. The literature says that there's a positive relationship, but I believe there is a negative relationship here. So when you have cases like this, you would say that, okay, this is the theory from the literature. My supervisor, my company supervisor knows several cases that this theory doesn't work for them, or to some extent works, but some part doesn't work. Then I'm going to use explanatory case study to confirm this theory, not to support the theory, but your goal is to show the literature that you're wrong, to show all those authors that you are wrong. In this context, this doesn't work. But if your company supervisor tells you that I cannot think of other antecedents, I'm going to give you a break, I guess, in 10 minutes. If your company supervisor tells you that I cannot think of other antecedents, I believe you have found everything, then you have two options. Option 2 is that you find that the majority of these antecedents already exist in one paper. Then you cannot do anything. Go for another study. Okay? If all of them exist in one paper, then you are doomed. You have to change your proposal. But if you find one or two of them in one paper, another one in another paper, and the other one in another paper, and you try to show in one nomological model all the antecedents of Y, then in that case, you have to use a field survey. So you cannot use explanatory case study because they are already supported in one or two cases. You don't believe that they can be disconfirmed easily with any cases that your company supervisors knows. Your hope is to just find the strengths of the relationship to figure out which antecedents are more important. So then you need to go for a field survey. So as a result of, so I'm not teaching field survey. Professor Carol Wu will teach this part. But if you end up with that you believe that you need to do an explanatory case study, then the result would be something like this. This was your theory, the blue parts and the constructs. You will find support for this. This was supported by the literature, but not by the data analysis. And this one, even the opposite of the literature was found. And you may also find new constructs. You may not see all of them. You may only see one or two new constructs. That's good. That's good. That's good for your thesis. That's enough. Or you find that one or two relationship does not work. That's great. So this would be the goal of your explanatory case study. A theory that is built using literature is disconfirmed to some extent, and some other new constructs are suggested. You may end up also with a hybrid case study as well. So you do a literature review, you find this in the literature and the constructs, you know that all these exist, you cannot come up with new relationships here. So you would go back and you would say that, okay, I'll try to find out the antecedents of these. I haven't found the antecedent of these three constructs in the literature. So that would be a good study. So what you do, you try to check these relationships one more time, and you try to test these, and you try to find new antecedents here. So we call this a hybrid case study. So now there's this exercise. I will mute myself. You think about Okay. What's your suggestion? Who wants to answer?
Probably an exploratory study where you test if those antecedents of agility also apply to audit agility.
Come again. You want to find the antecedent of agility, or?
No, so you have a paper that suggests antecedents of agility. So you would do like an exploratory study if those antecedents also apply to audit agility.
Oh, then you need to call that explanatory. You want to test it, yeah?
Oh yeah, explanatory, sorry.
Explanatory, that's good. The thing is that, but at the end, you may not end up with new constructs. The chance is high, isn't it, Esteban?
Yeah.
So then it's better to go for a hybrid case study to be sure. If you find something that would be good, but it's better to find the antecedents here. So you go for a hybrid. You see, this is what Wouter did, one of my students. He has found these antecedents, but for audit agility, he didn't find anything. So what he did was he went for a hybrid. He has found some antecedents of these teamliness, team collaboration, and responsiveness. Some of them were partly supported, but he was able to also find one new constructs as an antecedent of audit agility. So this is the theory after the data analysis. How about this one? Okay, for the sake of time, let me ask you, what's your answer, guys? What do you suggest? No one? Please, some of you, be brave. Otherwise, I need to ask Yuris to answer that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, some would go for the explanatory case study. Yeah, as you mentioned, but because as a student you may be able to do that, but the thing is that because your company supervisor cannot come up with any missing antecedents, your chance of finding new constructs would be low. So when you see that your chance is low, you cannot go for an explanatory case study because the chance is low. It's risky, very risky. So it's better to go for a field survey to be able to figure out the relationship, the strengths of relationship between these constructs. Is that clear? Someone asked, what is nomological model?
No, it wasn't clear.
What's that?
Can you tell again why it is a field survey? I didn't really understand.
Okay, so the thing is that, you have all the constructs here, yeah? You ask your company supervisors if he can comes up with new constructs. If he say he cannot come up with new constructs, that means he doesn't know any cases that can help you to find any new constructs. So you end up with finding exactly the same theory. You're not going to have any contribution to the literature. You're not going to find any new things. So it's better to go for a field survey. You cannot find new constructs, but at least you can show the strengths of this relationship using numbers. Let's see, what Karahana and Preston did. See here? They have designed a questionnaire. That means for each constructs that you have seen here, there are several questions. These are the list of questions here. And then they have found the strengths of relationship between these constructs. You see, these relationship strengths are between 0 and 1. This is very strong. Anything higher than 0.2 is, very strong. But he was not able to support this construct. So these constructs were not, these relationships were not supported. But these relationships, they were all supported here, and they were supported in a strong manner. So they have sent the questionnaire that, you see part of that to 1,000 people, 200 people returned the field questionnaire, and then they use PLS, which is very simple, like regression, to figure out if these relationships are supported or not. They cannot suggest new constructs. If you conduct explanatory case study, you can find new constructs and add them to the model. But because your company supervisor said that he doesn't know any other constructs, the chance of you being able to find those constructs are very low. So it's better to just go for the field survey. Is that clear? Okay.
For me, it's clear now.
Okay, great. In Pigeonhole, let me see if I don't see any question. Okay, that's good. Okay. Now, next question. Okay, who wants to give me the answer?
You would use probably a hybrid, because you use the existing antecedents, but as well there's many more missing. So we need to try to find others as well.
Yeah. Hybrid can be a good choice, but it's better to go for explanatory case because you already have several constructs here and there. Adding more constructs would be a little bit difficult. Because your financial, supervisor said that this model does not work in a financial industry, you have a high chance of disconfirming the literature, the propositions in the literature. So that's why it's better to go for an explanatory case study. But of course, you can also go for, a field survey if you want to, but an explanatory case study would be a better choice here.
So the added value to the literature would then be that you basically disproved those theory for the financial industry specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I found that, you see, this relationship doesn't work. This relationship doesn't work. You need to add trust here. but and he tried to also do some antecedents of these constructs as well. But that part was not needed. The contribution is here. Of course, if you want to target top journals, you'd better to use field survey here. But as a student, for you, it would be easier to do an experimental case study to just show that these do not work. So it's very much based on the literature and your company supervisor at the end of the day. Okay, so take that into account. You need to have a good supervisor who has a complete knowledge of those area, and you also need to do a thorough literature review. These are very important before you can make decision which approach to go for. Oh, assume that you haven't seen that. Just work on this. What is your suggestion? Anyone? Yeah, Maastricht University.
You'd probably do an exploratory to try to find the new variables.
Exactly. So this is new. You don't know how this will end, with a strategic risk. We cannot find the relationships here. Ransomwares are new to you. Then you'd better to go for an exploratory case study. And this is what Marnik did. He has found, so what he has found is, in a way, in this part is not new. He just said that, okay, severity of the ransomware attack, business disruption, and strategic risk. But what he has found here and here to explain these are new. For example, for extortion savageness, he has found that, okay, the extortion method is important, the access preventing method is important, and so on and so forth. So these are explained in higher detail to figure out how a ransomware attack can result in a strategic risk. So in a nutshell, experimental case study is suitable for causal studies that you want to test the theories. Exploratory case study is usually used to define the question sometimes, propose new constructs, and build new theories. So here you have the theory from the literature, you try to test that. Here you don't have any theories, you create a theory out of nowhere, only using data without looking at the literature. Usually, sometimes you do. So this is, let's go and have kind of, break. It's 11:53 now. Please get back in 10 minutes. That would be 12:03 in my time. Is that fine? In the chat, I want to see fine. Good. Thanks, Bilal, Allard, Kristen. Okay, see you in 10 minutes.
Sir, I have a question. Do you want to answer it now?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you're doing a hybrid study and you want to find new things and test theory that you already have, so both exploratory and explanatory. Can you search for participants that you want to interview? Like, can you search for specifically for someone's which can look at your current hypothesis and maybe agree on it or disagree on it? And
Yeah.
look
If
for
you have
other...
a knowledgeable person, yes, you can do that.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, let's get back. Are you here? Can you say yes? Just in the chat section. Yeah, good. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, please say yes. 9. Five more people say yes, okay. Okay, that's good. So now we want to know the role of literature and data analysis in greater detail in these three perhaps close approach. What is developed by data analysis? What is developed by the literature? You can see here that in case study, data triangulation is very important. And that's why we go for low sample size, because this data triangulation takes a lot of time. If you don't have data triangulation, then there is no difference between your case study and field survey. I see students that they just go and have their respondents fill out a questionnaire, and they have only 2 or 3 cases, and then they say that, okay, we have a case study. This is not a case study. If you just want the interviewees, even if you talk to them, that doesn't mean that it's a field, it's a case study. You need to use data triangulation. That means use a variety of data sources for to gather data. Just not the questionnaire that you see in field survey. So you see, this is the table of constructs that you just saw. In case study, it's not just a question, but in addition to the questions, survey questions, you need to have interview questions. You need to get some secondary documents. You need to have some quotes from interviewee 1 and interviewee 2. And that means you need to have 2 interviewees per, for constructs to provide enough support. What's the difference between exploratory and explanatory? Here is the difference. In the explanatory case study, the name of the constructs, its definition, and the way it measures roots in literature. So you do a thorough literature review, you create construct, its definition and measurement, you add them to the model, to your thesis. The support for these constructs in the explanatory case study comes from data. That means this construct existed in reality with interviewees and some others. In exploratory case study, the literature may, not all the time, give you some constructs, name, sometimes definition. Mostly it doesn't give you anything, but there can be 1 or 2 or 3 constructs suggested by the literature. The way that you need to measure the constructs roots in data analysis. Providing support for the existence of the constructs roots in the data analysis. As for the list of relationships, the table that gives you the list of relationships, you see that there is not that much difference between the 2 tables, between field survey and case study. Here, you try to provide some quotes from the literature to support the existence of the relationship. In the case study, you try to also add quotes from interviews. So in the field survey, mostly comes from the literature. In a case study, not only it comes from the literature, it can also come from the data analysis. Here, you use regression analysis, PLS, ANOVA to show that, to reject a hypothesis. The goal is to rejecting a hypothesis. Here, again, the goal is to reject a hypothesis. So if there's a relationship between A and B and it is positive, in your data, you try to show that when A is high, B is low. You look for these kind of cases to reject this hypothesis. Or when A is low, B is high. Okay. What's the difference between exploratory and explanatory? In testing the theory that already exists, again, the relationship roots in the literature. The influence roots in the literature. The reason is also roots in the literature. You may find some new relationships based on data. But the data analysis try to support these relationships. But again, your goal is rejecting the hypothesis here. In exploratory case study, all these tables must be created in the data analysis stage. So these are all created in the data analysis. So I just repeated what I told you before in a different way. So the table of constructs, explanatory, all are created using literature. In exploratory, using data analysis. The table of relationships, all root in the literature. The relationships in the exploratory case study roots in the data. That's why we say explore. We want to discover new relationships, new constructs. Explanatory, we just want to make sure that our explanation is correct. So as a result, you see that the organization of thesis for these two research methodology should be different. In exploratory case study, you have an introduction. You also do some sort of literature review to show that the theory does not, the literature is silent about that matter. That's all. The reason behind literature review is to show that the literature cannot answer the research question at all. Then you say that I'm going to use an exploratory case study. Then here, the proposition and theories are introduced in the data analysis section. Then you have a discussion section. You will say that what is new to the literature in your thesis. In the explanatory case study, as well as field survey, you have introduction, then you have literature review, then you create a theory using the literature that exists using the existing literature. Then you choose a methodology, and in the data analysis section, you only support or reject a hypothesis. You don't do anything else. You may suggest one or two new constructs or relationships. So, and that's only the result of testing the theory. Then here you explain what is new to the literature. If a hypothesis is rejected, you would be happy, you will write it down. If you have found a new constructs, you would be happy, you would add it here. Here, everything is almost new in the discussion section. So let's have an exercise. Assume that I have a field survey study. I have a construct called alignment. It's defined as the congruence between business strategy and IS strategy. And in the questionnaire, we are going to ask the CIO to give a value from 1 to 5. So this is a 1 here, sorry. From 5, strongly agree to strongly disagree, which is 1. The CIO will read these 3 and will assign a value for the organization. For the organization, the theory is about the organization. Okay, so this is a field survey. You have seen that in the literature, but you need to use explanatory case study in your own research. You have alignment as part of your theory. You need to measure alignment as part of your theory, but you do not use field survey. You're using explanatory case study. So how can you measure alignment? And remember, if you just use this, there is no difference between your study and a field survey. You need to have data triangulation. What do you suggest? I give you 30 seconds to think about this. Okay, anyone? Any suggestions? Yeah?
You would try to get input from different departments.
Different, you have interviews here, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of information you want to gather?
The 5-point skills, basically.
Yeah, that's one of them. Oh, you're saying that you want these questions to be answered by 2 people at least.
Yeah, well, definitely more than 2 people even, but from different departments
Yeah.
within the organization. So if you have different perspectives.
Yeah, but you see, you just change the number of people who answers the same question. That's good, but that's not enough.
You can use more files or something like that, papers that the firm uses in addition.
Yeah, some papers that and try to figure out this relationship exists or not. Great, exactly. So this is what I would do. First, I'm going to ask this question from the CIO. Then I'm going to ask the same question from the CEO. If the answers are different, I interview them to figure out what's wrong so that we can achieve one value here. Then I ask the CIO to provide the top 3 priorities in IT. I ask the CEO also to give the top 3 priorities in IT. If they are different, that means there is no alignment. Alignment is low. If they're similar, that means high. If the 3 were exactly similar, it's high. If 0 or 1 are similar, is shared between the 2 person, that means there is a low alignment between the 2 person. I can also read the IT strategy document to extract the top IT priorities, then read the business strategy documents to extract the top IT priorities. And if the difference is high, then alignment is low. If the difference is low, the alignment is high. Is that clear? So if you don't do something like that, you cannot say that I'm doing a case study. If you just simply ask these questions from 2 people, it's not case study, actually. You need to dig in like that. Okay. So this is what I suggested. What's about this exercise? You have time to conduct 6 interviews. Would you study 6 cases and have 1 interview per case? Would you study 3 cases and have 2 interviews with 2 individuals per case? What's your answer? Guys? Which one? The first option or second option?
Second option.
Yeah, because you want to have data triangulation. For each case, you need to have at least 2 individuals. Otherwise, you cannot call this a case study. Okay, good. Now about data collection. Okay, actually in 10 minutes or 12 minutes, I should be done. I try to go over this fast, and after that I stay. If you have questions, you can ask. So first, how to choose sample size. You have, assume that you have only this A and B. You need to go for extreme sampling. That means a case that A is high and another case that A is low. Or you can choose B, when B is high and B is low. This is the least that you need to do. That means here you cannot just have one case. You need to have at least two cases with high and low to do the least, or in a way to get a grade 6 and above. If you do the other parts exactly greatly. When you have exploratory case study, you don't know the antecedents. So choose B again, a case with high B and another case with low B. Usually you need to have 6 to 10 cases. That's the norm in top journals. And for case selections, for each case, you need to explain why a case is appropriate to be studied. When you choose an interviewee from that case, you need to explain why that person is the appropriate person to be interviewed. And at the end of this, you need to have create a table like this. Okay, I have 6 cases, case 1, 2. The first one is Flip, Heineken, or Shell, or perhaps your unit of analysis are all divisions in ING. ING Bank, ING Insurance, ING Mortgage. You will provide a description of that case, and then you would explain if that case fulfilled the criteria for being included. You would say, yeah, in this case, I'm working on IT investment, and they have 10 years of high IT investments. Because of that, ING Philips or ING Bank is the proper case to be studied. Okay, who are you going to study in this case? The CIO and IT manager, 2 people. CIO because he knows everything about IT and he has been in Philips for 5 years. So if we have a CIO who were in this job for less than 3 months, we're not going to interview him or her. If we have an IT manager with 3 months of experience, we're not going to interview him. But if it's a case of a project is usually takes around 6 months. 3 months is more than enough. Then you would say if it's less than 1 month, I'm not going to include that person in the interview. So before going, you need to write down these exclusion and inclusion criteria. And before going to the interviews, you need to make sure that they satisfy these. Otherwise, you're wasting your time going there because that interviewee cannot give you reliable information. Okay. So this theory includes 3 hypotheses. How many cases do you should have? At least. Who wants to answer this?
At least 2 cases.
Why?
Yeah, the constructs can be different. Like one can be high and one can be low.
Oh, so you're choosing B, yeah? And you would say that I need to have extremes for B, low or high. Correct?
No, for the X.
We don't have an X here. We have L and C and R.
Yeah, okay. For L and C and R, they need to be different, but at least 2 different cases with a different L, C, and R.
Mm-hmm. So this is in a way my answer is sort of following your answer. You need to have at least 1 case which is high L and low L. Then another 2 cases that has high C and low C, another high and low for R, and this is the least that you need to do. Of course, you may not be able to gather all these data, but you need to be hopeful that when you gather these 4, you will see high and low to some extent here. But this is the best that, the best least that can happen. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, good. Another question is that what is the source of your data? It can be interviews, which is the main source of data. It can be archives, secondary documents that was developed by the organization, or you may go and do observation, attend a meeting and write memo. So all these can be the source of data in a case study. But this is where most of the students do wrong. I have seen plenty of students with this issue in their thesis, and they end up with maximum a 6 or 6.5 if they're lucky. So you see, when you do interview, you're looking for facts, not opinions about causal relationships. You see, sometimes your interviewees, they like to provide general statements. And they usually, in English, they use present tense. For example, they will say that the DLT context, the blockchain, does not fit the way organizations, all organizations, organize their processes nowadays. So these are general statements. This interviewee, you selected him from one organization. He or she has to only talk about that organization, that unit of analysis, not about all other organizations. The DLT, he can say the DLT does not fit the way our firm organizes its processes. But even this, to me, is a little bit too much. I'd rather the interviewees talk about past tense, something that happened in the past, so that we are sure that this is fact. We introduced the DLT to our manager, but he hated that. He said this, that. So this is about it's not about future, it's not about opinion. He just narrates what he saw in the past. But that doesn't mean that when they say general statement, you stop and say that, okay, I don't want you to be, a big guy, just talk about it. So this is not a good idea, yeah? So you let them speak, but then you try to ask questions about that, unit of analysis, that organization. You would say that, okay, can you give me an example from the past for this? So keep that in mind. This is very important. And you can easily see them in the questions that the student asks from the people. Assume that you have a relationship of when you increase X, Y will be increased. You're not going and ask the person what is the influence of X on Y. Is it no influence, weak, moderate, or strong? You're getting their opinions. You can get his idea again, but don't report them in your thesis. If you report them in your thesis, I'm going to deduct huge mark from you if I'm the second reader or your supervisor. You ask only about the constructs. You would say that in your organization, what is the value of X? Choose between 0, low, medium, or high, something like that. In your organization, what is the value of Y? Or in this project, what was the value of X? What was the value of Y? In the audit cases that you have, what is the, get one project in your mind and say, what was the value of audit agility? Give me a number from 1 to 5. For exactly that project, what was the value of team leadness? So you only ask about the past and you only ask about the constructs, not the relationships. We never, even in field survey, we never ask about the relationships, okay? Only about constructs. And then if you see X is high and Y is low, your hypothesis is discomfort. Oh, we don't use hypothesis in the case study. We only use propositions. Sorry about this. This is just a wording thing. In the interview structure, how you start, you ask the interview to choose one unit of analysis in the past, a project in the past, or an organization, what happened to that organization up to that moment, which is in a very past. it shouldn't be based on future. It shouldn't be about opinions, okay? And all questions are just for the constructs. Then you ask about including or excluding criteria. If the case should be included or not. How many years this organization have been investing in IT? How many audit projects you have done? Then you ask about the experience of the interviewee to make sure that the interviewees should be included in the interview. After that, you ask question about the constructs that you have. You need to create a scale for each question. It can be like a scale for quality from 1 to 7 like this, or for very poor, poor, excellent. It can be for agreement, completely agree, completely disagree from 7 to 1. It's better to use a 1 to 7 scale. There are some statistical things behind that, but this is a better thing. Just do it. And start the question always from the DVs. Then go to the antecedents of the DV. If you have 3 layers of DVs and AVs, always start from the right with the DV that you have, then go for the antecedent of that DV, and then go for the antecedent of those DV. You would ask, okay, you want to, what is the audit agility? They would say that 3 in this project. The agility was not good. You would ask, why did you give this person, why did you give it a 4, for example? Why did you deduct 3? And with that, without asking about the antecedents, you try to figure out what antecedents are given by the interviews. Hopefully you can find some new antecedents. Then you ask, why did you give 4? What was good about the agility in this project? Then he tried to speak, and during his speech, you try to extract new antecedents. After this, you ask about the antecedent of the DV. So don't give your model, don't show your model to the interview at the beginning, because you lose the chance of finding new constructs. And then ask to get existing documents for the sake of data triangulation. After that, send a summary to the interviewee, send the model and everything. I'm going to show you what you can send, and then ask if anything is missing or in need of change. Okay, so these are examples. I'm not going to go over these exercises. Let's, this is important for your proposal, so I'd rather you read this one. So if you want to leave, you can. I'm 1 minute, the class is almost done, but I'm going to continue.
Amin, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So a question I often get from students is, how many interviews is enough?
I give that thing, the sample size is if you have low and high for all constructs.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That's very clear.
So who has the answer to this question? So the company comes to you, say that, okay, ask us, how can we use big data analytics to improve our organization? First of all, is this a good question for you? Can you study this? The answer is no, but why?
You don't have a why at the moment. You need to have a specific why.
It's not just about that. So let me tell you, you see, most of these companies, they hire you to give them suggestions about how they can use a technology in that organization to get some benefits. So they just say that, okay, we have IoT, we have big data, how can we use that? this is not going to be good for you because what? They don't have any data on big data analytics. They don't have any facts. They don't have any history. You remember past tense questions? You're going to ask them about something that happened in the past. If they don't have any projects on big data analytics, how can you, create a theory for them? So this is a very dangerous, position, in my opinion. You need to, whenever they say that, okay, you want to know more about IoT, have you done any projects on IoT yourself? If you don't have done anything, we don't have any data, I cannot do my thesis. Okay? At least a positive case study cannot be done. You can go for a design science perhaps. But whenever you want, when you're given a thesis topic, something like that, you need to be able to gather data about that. So your question would be, do you have any data on this? Do you have any history on this? If the answer is yes, you would say that, yeah, I can do that. If the answer is no, you would say that science cannot give you the answer, you need a consultant. Okay?
I don't think design science could solve this either.
Yeah, I thought, because some design scientists believe that they can do that.
No, so
Yeah.
everything
I
you
don't
said
believe that.
case studies in this lecture applies to design science too.
Yeah.
It's just that you use the theory in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
But everything you said about data collection is true for design science too.
Good to know that. Great. So about data analysis, at the end of the data analysis for exploratory, you want to see this. Again, this should be the outcome. For explanatory case study, you find that this relationship does not work, and you want to suggest new constructs. So you need to have a table like this. 5 out of 6 cases supported that, 1 case did not support it, and that's the reason for this relationship. These 3 cases supported, 3 cases did not support it. The reason was that there is a G here that acts as a moderator. So you need to provide some explanation here. So that's the goal of data analysis. So I leave this to you to read. Another table that you need to create to be able to make those kind of decisions is that have the list of cases, all the constructs here, A, B, C, the values that you have found through interviews for each case, 3, 1, 7 here, in this case, high, 0, 1, low, and so on and so forth. It's good to create that for exploratory case study as well. How can you do this? How can you create this for a case? This is how you can do this. All those outcomes, these outcomes. How can you create this? You need to write a case report. After the interview, case info, interview one's info, transcribe the interview for the second person. So for each case, I need to have a case report. Secondary data here, then you need to answer the research question as if you only have this case. Create the model, the grant table 1, which is the list of constructs and the list of the relationships. Then you do that for all cases, and then you generalize them to the outcome that you need to provide. So don't forget, if you don't write a case report for a case, your chance of finding good things would be down. You send each case after you have written them down, after you have analyzed, back to the interviewee to make sure that you haven't missed anything. Okay, this is very important. That's why I want you to do this exercise. Okay, who wants to answer this? What is the relationship between A and B? The data says the relationship is positive or negative. Anyone? Okay, here you don't see any relationship in my opinion. How about B and C? What kind of relationship do you see here? This is a kind of negative relationship. You see, when B is high, C is low. When B is low, C is high. So you see a kind of negative relationship between the two. Then you would compare this with the hypothesis, with the proposition that you have found in the data. So there are some general guidelines here. Please refer all these. I would check your bibliography, your reference set to see if these are referenced. Follow a great published study like this one for explanatory case study. Have a case study protocol, and I'm going to upload a checklist. Please see that checklist and try to make sure that you do a good study using them. I'm going to upload them all on Canvas, and then you can see this. If you have any questions, I'm here and
I have a question. Maybe it's also for Ms. Hulstein. Will there be a session, another session that talks more about doing a survey, or is this session for the survey?
Yes, indeed. Professor O will do such a session.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, that's great. Thanks for bearing with me. I hope that you can do a good case study. And if you have any question, you can always shoot me an email. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.